Not Quite
Darkness
is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general. Listener discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Not Quite Darkness. My name is Keith Brooks. I'm here as always with Mr. Chad Dowdy. Chad, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. And, it's a good thing we call the podcast Not Quite Darkness, because it looks like the people on YouTube, you are in a dark room.
Yep.
Like, is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get rid of because I have that light that sort of just blinds everything. And now I have like a little cool ass beam right there that I can do stuff with. That's cool. Yeah, I'm just trying to get like atmospheric. I'm trying to get the vibes down.
It definitely works for this horror movie podcast for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a horror of a movie we're going to be discussing today. We are going to be watching a film from one of Rob Praga's favorite storytellers. And we'll talk about that momentarily. We're, of course, talking about the 1981 Fisher Stevens, Jason Alexander starring The Burning. Now, I've seen this once before. Have you seen this prior to this?
Yes, I've seen it once before, but I didn't see it way back in the 80s. It was more maybe 5 years ago or something like that when I was trying to blast through some 80s horror.
Yeah, same here. And I remember not liking it when I watched it that time. And I definitely didn't like it this time. I knew that we were in for something when it said like produced by Harvey Weinstein. And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I guess he produces a lot of movies. And then it was like executive produced by Harvey Weinstein. I'm like, it's weird they doubled up that. And then it was like story by Harvey Weinstein. And I'm like, oh God. And it shows at some points of this film. So
I didn't even notice that at all.
it's big all the way across the screen. It's intense. Yeah.
I clearly was fast forwarding through the credits or something. I don't know. It's like, let's get this over with. Let's go.
Yeah, but this was a pet project of Harvey Weinstein's. So thanks for making me watch it, Chad. What was this bullshit about?
So, well, basically, what I'm wearing is Camp Crystal Lake because, this is a Friday 13th movie. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Now, I know this came out the same year as Friday the 13th Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we actually got Jason proper.
Yeah.
But this is Friday the 13th. You could slap that on there, and that's what this movie is.
Yeah.
So some of, my commentary about this will be through that lens of this is a Friday the 13th type film for sure. But basically, we start out at a camp, just like, Friday the 13th, and there's some teens, they're plotting a prank on Cropsey. I don't know if he's the caretaker, he owns the camp, he's the janitor.
I think he's supposed to be the janitor. Now, are you familiar with the Cropsey story outside of this film?
No, not at all. So enlighten me, please.
Yeah, so like Cropsey in like the tri-state area of like New York, Cropsey was a big Staten Island boogeyman. Like, and I remember going to school in New York, and Cropsey was like an urban legend and stuff like that, right? And he was just like a burn victim that would come grab you and all that stuff. But then a couple of years after I think I graduated, I saw a film. I don't even know, it may be called Cropsey, but it's about a documentary tracking down that story. And it turns out that the actual person that's based on there really was a Cropsey individual who was a pedophile who like camped out in an abandoned like insane asylum and all of this stuff. And so like, I don't think that information about him had been made public yet, but that Cropsey story is a big New York like legend and shit. So.
Well, yeah, no, I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from the South, but I've never heard that. So what you're saying is this movie came out, there was an urban legend, but they didn't know that he was really a pedophile.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the true nature of it had. I think it had happened prior to this movie's release, but then time had just we hushed everything out, like a bunch of other things related to this film with Harvey
Yeah,
Weinstein. We just
exactly.
didn't talk about it. Yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, yeah, he's the bad guy and he's killing people, but he is sympathetic to a degree, especially right here at the beginning, what we're about to talk about. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
There's no hint of badness from him at the
Mhm.
beginning, you know, unlike Freddy Krueger, let's
Yeah.
say, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So you know, they're gonna play a prank on him. So the prank is they light a skull candle in his room
Now,
and
is it a
wake him
candle
up.
or what is it? Is it like an actual skull? Like what?
You know, I took it as maybe like a skull, but like a candle was inside of it.
Yeah, but where did they get the fucking skull? That's the thing that I was confused about.
It's camp, man. Have you ever been to camp? You find a ton of shit in the woods.
But not you shouldn't be able to find human skulls. Did they get that off the set of Friday the 13th Part 2 and just bring it over? Like,
Maybe, you know. So he wakes up, Cropsy wakes up, and the flaming skull freaks him out and he knocks it over. It lights his bed on fire, it lights him on fire,
mhm,
and he basically is engulfed in flames and just runs out
yeah,
and runs into the lake. Some might argue Crystal Lake, but you know,
yeah.
we'll see. So uh that's it for that. And now it's like a week later, I think. At yeah, 1 week later, we're at the hospital. And these are maybe two of the worst doctors I've ever seen in my entire life.
Ever, ever,
They're
ever.
doctors, right?
Well, I think one's a doctor, and I don't know what the other dude's job is because the one that I think is a doctor is scared to look at a
Exactly.
patient, and
Yes,
it's
that's
like
why I was like,
you're in
what?
the wrong line of business, man. Like, and the other one is like saying right in front of the patient, "This guy looks so fucked up. He looks like spaghetti," like
Yeah,
really loud.
exactly. One is so callous and mean, and the other one is terrified. He's literally basically hiding behind the door
Yeah,
of a burn victim, and you're a doctor.
yeah.
Like it's unbelievable. And then, you know, we get just a jump scare. The burnt hand of Propsy grabs that one doctor, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I was like, how many times are we gonna do this? Now we cut to 5 years later. Like we're keep going forward. And all we're really doing is we're padding time for this movie.
And this movie does that a lot.
Yes. It's pretty egregious at the end, some of the
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah, we're padding time. So it's 5 years later and he's out. And you know, at first I just thought they're padding time when he goes and Cropsy kills a prostitute. I didn't think it was even necessary or anything like that. And it's not necessary. But now that you've told me about the urban legend of Cropsy,
Yeah.
like killing people, okay, maybe that's what they're trying to do. Like
But it's also
maybe.
like I just now realized that kill happened because I've been so angry thinking that the first kill in this movie is like 47 fucking minutes into it. But I guess it's that one prostitute that is not connected to the story in any capacity. That's also like what a weird situation. She just keeps leaving doors open for him. Like it's not only a prostitution thing, but it's also a game of chase. That's what they really pay for.
Exactly. They were definitely, she was definitely having fun with him for sure. And, you know, I forgot to mention too in the opening credits, Friday 13th, Tom Savini,
Yeah.
you know, he's awesome. He's a horror legend. And it's like, yeah, if we're going to make a Friday the 13th knockoff, let's go get Tom Savini.
Yeah.
So that's what they did, obviously. But so after he kills the prostitute, now we're at camp. And frankly, I'm surprised it didn't say like, you know, 24 hours later or something like that. Like we really need this information
Yeah.
about later it is. But we're at camp. And to your point, we've got George Costanza, Jason Alexander himself with hair.
With hair.
Yeah. Looking pretty good, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Fisher Stevens not trying to do any accent that is not his, and that's great. Super fucking skinny as shit too, man.
Yes. I almost didn't recognize him.
Yeah, he
Frankly.
looked like a fucking baby. Like the rest of the kids, I'm like, yeah, you're late teenager, early 20s. I thought this was a 12-year-old like
Yep.
that we were looking at.
And then there's also a guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He's one of the main characters there as well. Uh, they're just, you know, playing ball at camp. We get a little a killer POV. Uh,
Well,
Nothing going on.
we
That's also
also
Friday
get
13th.
we also get a slow motion shot of a girl running, and that was the first, like, yep, there's Harvey. Like, that's the first sort of glimpse of it.
I feel like it almost seemed like one of the girls was playing in her panties, but it could have been like a bathing suit, but like
But
not everyone's playing in their bathing suit.
it was also very egregious, though. Like, they kept showing it, and then Costanza and whoever the other guy was that had like a really out of place 1930s New York accent was like, I certainly want to get with her. Like, and, and and they just kept cutting it to it. And it's like, she's a very attractive woman. She has no ass, no ass whatsoever. It was like looking at a piece of chewing gum in the wrapper for a degree of it. But anyway, go ahead.
You're a terrible person, Keith.
Yeah.
So anyway, next morning we get boobs
Yeah, which is great. That's awesome.
right off the bat. We get
Right off the bat.
boobs. You know, girls taking a shower, and the fast time guy, he sneaks in and spies on her. They kind of make you believe maybe it's Cropsy because of, you know, killer POV. We've already seen kind of that, but it is just the stupid guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, let's for 1 second. Let's go back for 1 second because there is something else I wanted to mention in that baseball sequence, which was the most captivated I was of them in the boobs. So the girl goes into the woods to go try to find the ball. Takes her 2.5 hours. Forever. Then the game continues. The last girl up to bat looks just like fucking Alice from Friday the 13th, Part 2. And like, to the degree that I thought, did I put on the wrong movie for a second? Anyway,
That's
the
hilarious.
end. Go ahead. Yeah.
Also, this is a little sports thing for you, and it's just stupid. But when she came back with the ball, there was a runner on first base. I don't know why you'd still be on first base after that.
Well, I think there's a lot of logical problems with this film, but go ahead.
Definitely. So as I said, you know, it's the Fast Times guy. But basically he just says he only wanted to scare her, but that he also doesn't have any friends. This is not really the way to make friends, I would guess. It would, in fact, probably be the exact opposite. You'd alienate a lot of people spying on girls in the shower.
And I don't really understand. I didn't go to camp as a kid because I don't think it was as popular when I was growing up as it was for other generations. But
right, definitely younger.
Yeah, but like, I also feel that in Friday the 13th, every now and then they'll remind you the teenagers are counselors at the camp, and we see little kids. And I want to say at the beginning of this movie that was the case, and then we just forgot about that. Are these people at camp to be counselors, or are they to be kids?
I took it as they were kids for the most part. Like, there's a couple, like Todd's the head counselor, and there's a female counselor that, you know, Todd's with or whatever. But these are, you know, teenagers. But I think maybe what they do to get rid of that is later when they go on the canoeing down the river or whatever, all the little kids are not doing the canoeing excursion.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that's how, you know, we're getting around that. But to be fair, I did like the camp stuff in this movie, like the fact that we're actually seeing quote kids doing camp stuff, like playing ball, canoeing down the river and things like that. Because a lot of times with Friday 13th, we don't get that
at all.
We get, like, you know, counselors setting up or, you know, camp hasn't even started yet. There's not a whole lot of camp activities in Friday the 13th, even though it takes place the majority of the films, you know. But so the head counselor, Todd, he calms down the Fast Times guy. But basically the Fast Time guy, he was spying on maybe Glazier's girl. Like, what a name. Is that also an urban legend, Glazier? Because that's a stupid ass name. So Glazer is maybe one of the biggest pussies I've ever seen in these 80s movies. He acts tough, but he doesn't do anything ever.
Well, he pushes one kid who can't swim into a lake.
A kid in the lake. Ha.
Yeah.
But like that moment, the way he's acting to the Fast Times guy who just spied on his girl naked, he's acting like he's going to beat his ass, but he doesn't. It's almost like he's scared of him. And the guy's smaller than him too.
And it's not even like really, it's not even his girl yet. Like, dude shouldn't have been spying on her regardless, but it's not even his girl yet. And when he gets the chance to have it be his girl, fumbles the ball quite literally.
At every turn. This
Yeah.
guy, he's the worst. I feel like, uh, whoever made this movie, if it's Harvey or whatever, like there was this guy that bullied him in school.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's going to look like the biggest dumbass at every chance I get, like at every chance. So, so later, he does push the guy into the lake, but like 5 people come to the Fast Times guy's aid. So it seems like to me, he does have friends.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it certainly seems that way.
So much so that they plot an instant revenge against the guy with Woodstock as the paintball gun expert in a military like procedure.
Exactly. And so basically he shoots Glazier in the ass with this paintball or whatever. And, Glazier just turns and says, "Oh, you guys, I'm going to kill you, fuckers, or whatever. You suck."
And then some girl who we'd never see again throws him in the water.
They also moon him. Like all 4 of the dudes moon him. So they've shot him in front of the girls, embarrassed him. They've mooned him. And then another girl pushes him in the lake after he's yelling at them. And he's bigger than all these guys, by the way.
All of them. Yeah.
Every one of them. And he acts like he's tough shit. But then it immediately cuts to they're all in the cabin and they're all hanging out together. And Glazier's with them. Like he's just laying in his bunk. They're just having a good time now.
And then Costanza went and bought them all condoms and fucking porno mags, and they're all like, "Yeah, let's get hard together." And like, look at the magazines. And I just don't understand that. And then, okay, so then in addition to that, Glazer looks at the condoms, which are $5, which that's not unreasonable, I guess. But he's like, "What? This aren't lubricated for her pleasure. That's what I wanted." And nothing about this guy seems like he's interested in her pleasure. You know what I mean?
100%. You're so right.
And then he's like, "I'll just go buy him myself." Why the fuck didn't you do that beforehand? Why did you make one of the gargoyles from the Hunchback of Notre Dame go buy this for you? So confusing. Anyway,
it's just ridiculous how he's all buddy with them now after everything that just happened. After everything, it's just insane to me.
Yeah.
But while they're all hanging out there, the Fast Times guy, he sees Cropsy, or he doesn't know it's Cropsy, but he sees Cropsy like in the window, but nobody else notices it or whatever. And then the next day is what I was talking about, where they take the canoe trip down the river, where it's supposed to be like, I don't know, 3 days or something like that. And basically all of the main characters go. Yeah. It's, no one that we haven't met or anything doesn't go. Everyone goes on this canoe trip. And they're telling campfire stories, horror stories as you would or whatever. And Todd scares them and talks about the story of Cropsy, basically. Which I'm going to come back to that later because that becomes super weird.
It does.
Like it's almost like a continuity error, or they changed it, they rewrote it halfway through or something like that.
Definitely re-ADR'd some stuff too, but go ahead.
And they scare them with like a fake Cropsy or something like that or whatever. And then we have, I don't know if you remember this, Keith, the thought of it, but it's the oddest happy music I've ever heard.
It sounded like a Zelda song because it pans up to like the moon and it's like ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? This felt like it was from some other movie. And they're like, we need a temp score real quick. And they just left it in.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, it did not have any place in this movie. I was like, and I'm not like the biggest guy about noticing music or whatever like that. But I was like, this is not right. What is going on? It was crazy.
But there's two more because there's that. And then when they're actually going down the river in the canoes, we kick into hillbilly banjo bluegrass. And I'm like, what the fuck's the matter with Friday the 13th in this movie that they used bluegrass when we're supposed to be in like Maryland and New Jersey and shit? I don't get it.
Somebody saw Deliverance, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I felt like I got deliverance in this movie.
So a couple goes off to skinny dip and full frontal on the girl. Full frontal.
Which is lovely. But this is the most Harvey Weinstein of the whole. My power just go out? Not again.
That's
No.
really creepy.
No, yeah. Um not
Prophecy's
all,
right behind you, Keith.
that would actually be really good promotional material. Not only, spoiler alert, the girl's the first one that dies, but she dies after refusing to have sex with this man who's trying to force himself on her. And then he literally says, she comes out, he guilts her into skinny dipping. Then she goes skinny dipping with him. Love the view. It's great. Really fucking dark and hard to see things, right? What happened a minute ago with the lights going out, that's what the movie looked like at this point in time. And then they're making out some, and she's like, hey, let's actually not. And he's like, what the fuck you come out here for? Get the fuck out my face, bitch. And then she goes off and gets killed. But Cropsy's not just going to kill her. He's going to do the, ooh, piece of candy trick, like with her clothing throughout the woods, and then kill her. And it's just, yeah, Harvey, teach them the lesson. If they don't have forceful sex with you, then fucking murder them, Harvey.
Yeah, and the clothes thing is like, it's just an excuse for her to be naked that much longer.
Yeah.
Because when you're skinny dipping, you're neck deep.
Yeah.
So, you don't really see anything. You saw her when she went in, of course. Like, oh, this isn't long enough. Let's have an extended scene where she's just walking through the woods, picking up random articles of clothing or whatever. And Cropsy kills her with garden shears, which is like on the cover of the box. It's a cool weapon or whatever. So
that thing,
that's what it makes me think. Is he like the caretaker of the camp? You know what I mean? Like, I guess the janitor's do everything kind of thing, but
yeah.
The garden shears seems like his weapon of choice or whatever. So the group wakes up the next morning and all the canoes are gone. Which I kind of like that as an idea. They're down in the deep in the woods or whatever, and their canoes are gone. And the girl's missing, that was killed. And they kind of think that maybe she did it, because the guy was like, yeah, I tried to get with her and she got mad at me or whatever, or something like that.
What? Yeah, he even doesn't even say that. He's like, she got mad about something. Okay, get off me. And then
but everybody knows. Everybody knows why she got mad at you, dude.
Yeah, and then Jason Alexander does like a Johnny Carson impersonation, and I'm like, this is so, God, the 80s.
Exactly. So this is so funny to me. I literally left it on. I think this the female counselor says something like, well, let's walk back. Todd's delivery is so ridiculous because he says something like, look around, it's a thick forest. But the way he says it is like, look, you dumb fucking bitch. Can you not tell this situation? There's trees all over the place. That's the way he was acting.
I'm just going to sample that look, you dumb fucking bitch, and play it every time Rob says something dumb in the actual podcast.
I mean, that was what he was giving.
Yeah.
Which I think might have been his girlfriend too, if I'm remembering the characters correctly. But he is so mean to her just by saying, let's just walk back. Like, it's the woods. Let's walk back. No, you dumb idiot. So instead they build a raft, which I guess they learned how to build a raft at camp. It's a pretty good raft.
Yeah. Well, one girl suggests a bottle, and then they tell her no and throw the bottle away from her. It's just, and I don't remember any of the characters except for Jason Alexander and guy with bad bebop rocksteady New York accent. Those are the only ones I remember.
I can't believe you don't remember Glazer. He's the worst character of all time.
I do remember him, but that's just because he's like fucker with his lips all the time. Like that's anyway.
So they do build the raft, and some of the characters head back on the raft, mainly Fisher Stevens, and maybe the New York accent guy you're talking about, but most of the main characters are staying just to wait for help because, of course, the raft isn't big enough or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a while later, and the raft is down the river, and I really like this. This was super cool. They see one of their canoes.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, let's check it out. So they, paddle up to the canoe. And when they get to the canoe, Cropsy hops up. Not sure where. Like maybe it wasn't deep, or if he was in the canoe, he's got amazing balance.
Absolutely. And amazing ability to hide, because when we see him later, he's built like fucking Goldberg, but he's hiding in a canoe that's that big. Like,
Yeah. So I'm not saying it makes sense logistically, but certainly it's cool. So he hops up and he kills everyone. It's
but
awesome that we wipe out everyone just like that.
absolutely. But I think also the logistics of the scene don't matter, because when the raft gets to the canoe, Fisher Stevens is the first person. And it seems to be that Cropsey is there, like either in the canoe or behind it, but somehow kills all the people in the back of the raft first. But there is an awesome scene where he takes somebody's fingers off as they're
It's Fisher
screaming.
Stevens. Yeah.
It's Fisher Stevens. It's great.
Yes.
That was awesome. That was cool shit.
Yeah. Yeah. He cuts him off. He cuts off his fingers and he stabs him. But I think probably he killed Fisher Stevens last because we know who he is. The other people are cannon fodder.
Yeah, maybe,
So,
maybe, yeah.
and then Glazer finally, your boy Glazer, he gets with his
Money.
girl. But guess what? He comes too early.
Yeah. Yep. Premature ejaculation is a problem that we all face. But it's like, it's literally like thrust, he's done. And then she rolls over and she says something that's like, is that it? Like, or something to the effect of that. Yeah.
He's the worst. He is the absolute worst. This is intentional to make him look this way, like in the writing. It is so freaking funny.
It's the only addition of complexity to any character in this fucking movie, then. And it's the worst fucking character ever.
I really do think that his name is Glazer too, because somebody probably grew up with a Glazer.
Yeah.
Like really, like that. Yeah. This is him. And they intentionally like, look, we're talking about you, dude, because your name is Glazer. Like,
yeah. There's only one of you. It's either you or the wrestler Glacier, but I don't think it's him. It's you.
Exactly. He's kind of a nice guy, so I don't know if he's as mean as that. Yeah. But so basically, after that, he comes to, he just leaves. Like, well, I'll be back.
Yeah, he's going to go get her a heater or something. I don't know what he's going to get her. Something that we've never seen before. But she says she's cold because they don't have any clothes on. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go get you a propane tank or something, and then leaves.
Yes. Then, of course, Cropsey shows up and he kills the girl, but she puts up more of a fight
than anybody.
Than Glacier ever would. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, she looked like Captain America catching Thanos' fist and trying to fight it back. Like, that's how good of a job she was doing.
Yeah, she wasn't having it, but she did die, but she put up a huge fight. Then Glacier comes back, killed immediately. Can't put up a fight at all. He's terrible. But the old stupid Spire, Fast Times guy, he sees this whole thing. He's been watching them the whole time. He sees it and he runs and he tells Todd. But then Todd gets attacked. Then Fast Time runs and hides. That's going to be a theme with this. Fast Time running and trying to hide, because we see it a lot of him just by himself. Then I think this is, to me, this is the most tense moment in the movie. And I do think it's really well done. The raft, the canoe, or the raft comes back.
Yeah.
The raft comes back to where everyone's waiting. And they're like, what the hell's going on? The raft is back. And the female counselor swims out to that. And we already know what's on the raft, but we don't know if Cropsey's going to attack, who's going to attack, when's he going to attack. And Todd's running, I believe, to get there as well. So it's super tense. I think it's well done leading up to what's going to happen when she's swimming out to that raft.
And it's like you have the kids on one side on the dock, Todd's on the other side of the water, and then she's been swimming out to the raft that's in between them. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I think you're giving it too much credit, but go ahead. It's fine.
So, and then she gets to the raft and there's dead bodies. The dead bodies are in the raft. So now everyone freaks out. And But then Jason Alexander and the female counselor and some other randos that we don't know, they get on the raft and they head back to camp and they actually get back to the main camp. But Todd and Fast Times are still out there. Like as far as I know, they're the only two that are still out there, you know. This is where, again, we're padding time because the Fast Times guy must run through the same part of the wood / concrete 18 times.
Mm-hmm.
We just keep seeing the same thing over and over. He's just running through the same area. It's ridiculous, quite frankly. But eventually, Topsy grabs him, but he doesn't kill him. He just ties him up because, again, plot.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Then Todd shows up to save him, but then we flash back to the beginning of the movie, and Todd was one of the original pranksters, which is fine if Todd's one of the original pranksters. But now, knowing this, he's telling the Cropsey story and scaring people
based on his own crime. It's O.J. Simpson writing the book. If I did it, like that's exactly what he's doing.
Yes, he's the villain.
Yeah,
of this movie now. Like
absolutely,
clearly,
yeah,
he is the villain. He is reveling in the crime that he did years before and scaring other kids about it. It's crazy. That reveal was like ridiculous. Then we see Cropsey. We finally get to see Cropsey's burnt face because we haven't really seen it this whole time.
Yep.
But could be Jason Voorhees as far as that goes.
It's got a little bit of like a Cenobite twist to it, but other than that, it's
I mean, especially when you consider like the several times we've seen Jason in Friday 13th films.
Yeah.
He looks different in several of them. Like in, part 1 where he's, the kid. That's not the way he looks in part 7. No. It's not the way he looks in part 8.
Which it's just the best of them. Yep, agreed.
I said 7 because that's the best one. But
well, I've heard it both ways. Yeah, he looks also like the hospital that was trying to treat him and trying to do the grafts that wouldn't take. They didn't do shit, is what it looks like. It looks like they just put him on ice for a couple minutes and so they're like, it'll scab over, and that's it because there's no. It looks rough. Bro looks rough.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Tom Savini, go for it. You know what I mean? He created the, so yeah, that makes sense. But so Cropsey tries to burn Todd, but Fast Times unties himself and he unstabs himself too. I forgot he was stabbed.
Yeah.
And then he stabs Cropsey with his own shears, and seems like Cropsey's dead, I guess. That's right. That's got to be the end of the movie, right? Cropsey's dead after he gets stabbed. Nope. He jumps up and he goes to grab them, but Todd hits him with an axe and they burn him again. So Todd repeating, being the hero, saving the day, burning
Cropsey, his initial burn victim. He's finishing the job, I guess.
Yeah, take that, Cropsey.
Yeah.
Like,
fuck.
We didn't know you were a pedophile, to be fair.
Yeah.
Apparently, Keith did. I didn't when I was watching this movie. I didn't know the whole thing. So, and then for a random reason, we come to a campfire and a dude's telling this story.
But it's not even the dude's voice. It's somebody's voice dubbed on top of him, and it doesn't match what his lips are actually doing. And it just,
and we get that one last jump scare in. We get that he like yells at the camera or whatever.
He's coming for you. Then it just ends, and there was a sigh of relief around the world as this movie was finally fucking over. Look, I'm not gonna bury the lead. Not as good as Friday the 13th. There's a lot of just like sloppy filmmaking. I think the fact that Todd is a murderer, we should talk about that a little bit more. And there should be like a dilemma or just have memorable characters. Why the fuck is Cropsey? I'm going to murder everyone except for this kid. I like the way he watches people.
Exactly.
It's just, and I get wanting to throw sex and violence in the movie. Him killing the prostitutes is not important to anything.
Not at all.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, just a
It's
fucked
just
up.
it's a time.
Yeah,
And I guess it's a time thing. But again, I could maybe see that they were trying to create the urban legend of Cropsey. Maybe. Like,
maybe. But I like the scene where they're at the beginning when they're in the hospital and they're pushing in on the doors. I think there's a wheelchair there for some fucking reason, and we're hearing all of the doctors tell him, "You need to get rid of the anger." Blah blah blah. That's a good little setup for what's going to happen. That's all I need. I don't need. I just think there's a lot in this movie that's not needed, and a lot more that was needed to make it an actual feature length film that they didn't put into it.
well, I think, other than, again, Glazer, who we talked about a lot, he actually, we have opinions about him and things like that. The only other reason we kind of know who some people are is because we know who Jason Alexander is.
Yeah.
We don't know who his character is. We know Fisher Stevens from other things, but not in this. They're all, with the exception of Glazer, really, they're all just like
Underdeveloped.
one note characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just nothing to
Yeah.
them whatsoever. From, you would think that, again, if this was a more well-made movie, Todd might have some demons.
Yeah, absolutely.
That he is fighting through. Maybe you don't know why. Maybe he's an asshole sometimes. Maybe he's nice, but you don't know. Something's going on under the hood.
Yeah.
By what happened before, and that's not the case at all. So
Absolutely.
the reveal of him being a part of the is like, what? We never got a hint of that. I mean, he's nothing. He's even telling stories.
Yeah, and
So
I also
the characters are a problem for sure.
Yeah, and I also think the movie itself doesn't see Todd's culpability in that as a bad thing because it doesn't treat it like one. It treats it almost like he's haunted by the memory of this burning. But it's like almost like it's a horror being done against Todd as opposed to being done against Cropsey. And I think like that's where it just misses. I think Jason Alexander is doing a lot of good work. Like he's doing a lot of nonverbal stuff with a script that I think is subpar, but like his acting feels more like a 30-year-old around a bunch of 14-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like, and he just feels like he's in a different level than everybody else around him because
Definitely.
he's adding so much to the character that's not there, but it's still not enough for it to become memorable. You know what I mean? And he just looks like mini George Costanza with a wig on. But he's great. He's fun. He's svelte. I liked him in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it 1.5 stars. Like because some of the kills were cool. They were boobs, but other than that, like it's just I'm not a fan.
Well, so I love slashers. I love 80s slashers. This had the quintessential stuff you need in an 80s slasher. It has boobs. It has cool
Yeah.
kills. It's Tom Savini. And there's a ton of 80s slasher movies where you don't care about the characters or even know anything about them. I gave this 3 stars because
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not a masterpiece, but there's some cool kills. Like,
There's what kills were cool. The raft.
Yeah, the raft was super cool. And I liked how the one girl that Glazer had sex with, like fought back. Where we didn't see that with anybody, with any of the guys other than, the very end or whatever. So I did like that piece of it. Garden shears, it's an interesting weapon, it's yeah. Listen, it's not a masterpiece. It's a Friday the 13th part. I don't know, 3.5, whatever you want to call it. Sure, I'll take it.
I would absolutely see it as a 3.5. Yeah, I do think 3 is really good, but this feels like a 3.5 because yeah, it's well, okay. So 2 things that we always do: remake and Funko Pop of this. How are you going to remake it?
I'm going high concept with this.
Do it.
I am going to have this be Stranger Things season 6 and have the entire cast just go to camp. And there's no supernatural elements like, a lot of the Stranger Things stuff.
Yeah.
But again, they're about the age. They can be at camp. You'd have to deal with 11 having powers or whatever. But like, she could be down the river on the raft at another place or whatever. And you could easily do where, again, I know you don't like, you haven't seen all of the Stranger Things, stuff, but you could easily have uh, Steve be the Todd character because Steve is older.
Okay.
And in the season one, he kind of was like not a nice guy,
Yeah.
and he's since become a good guy. So I think Steve could do something like that where he was a part of this crazy prank, back in the day.
Yeah.
And now it's, coming back to haunt them all or whatever. So that's what I would do. I would do the Stranger Things cast in the season, and whether it's a movie, I mean, I wouldn't do a season. I just do a movie, but it's with them.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
That's great. I would do a I would likewise do a television show, but I would stretch it out and make it fit more of that Riverdale vibe. So it's like a couple of weeks in the camp, right? And we have a bunch of unknowns. We fill it up with the drama, the tension, the sex. We sort of play into that, fully flesh out these characters, play into that Todd is actually the bad guy thing in the end. They will take out Cropsey, but then Todd's gonna snap at the end of my version, right? And so
Nice.
it becomes like a one season of television that is sexy, dark, murder, all that sort of stuff. And so it can pull in the audiences that way. And maybe change the name ever so slightly, just so we don't have to give Weinstein any cash. What about Funko Pops? What are you doing for that?
So, sometimes I'm sure you've seen these before. It's not a single Funko, it's like a scene. So I
Yeah,
would 100% do the raft.
that's great.
And you don't even have to have like all of Cropsy have like part of his body
Yeah.
up maybe in the water or in the canoe or whatever with the shears. And maybe you have like two or three already dead,
Yeah.
and what's his face, Fisher Stevens with his,
Finger
hand up.
stuff. That'd
Yep.
be great.
Yep.
I think I would just do the classic seeing Cropsy with the face and then that pose with the shears up.
Yep.
I just think that'd be a fun one. That'd be classic. Plus to see his little, chibi face all fucked up. I think that would be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I do think it'd be cool to see how they would do his face or whatever.
So do you think this deserves to be on the list?
Not at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
No. I mean, there's going to be others, obviously, that don't deserve to be on the list, but I just don't see any reason whatsoever why you would have this on the list. Like some things you could be like, okay, well, maybe it was the first movie that did this, so that's why it's on the list.
Yeah.
But again, it seems like it's Friday the 13th.
And that's the only reason I could think of. Like, if you're just trying to encapsulate what horror was at that time, and you're saying it was a bunch of people ripping off Friday the 13th, I'm sure even in that pool, there's a better version of this. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I bet we're going to see better
Yeah,
versions of
absolutely.
that as we go along. So I don't get it. I don't
don't
quite
either.
understand why now. Maybe just again, if somebody's got a hard on for 80s slashers, like if I'm making like a horror movie list of the 80s, I feel like it's going to be a lot of slashers just because that's like my bread and butter. But even I don't think that I would put this
Yeah, you'd
anywhere
have
near
to be
any type of list.
absolutely. You'd have to be insane to put this on the same list as The Shining, or to even give it 3 stars on Letterboxd. You have to be a crazy person.
Yeah, you have to be a crazy person, but
Crazy person. Okay, so that is 1981's The Burning. What are we watching next time?
So what we are watching next time is a movie that not only have I never seen,
Ooh,
I've never even heard of it until the documentary
ooh.
came out. And it's from 1981 still, directed by Larry Cohen. Full Moon High.
I've never seen that one either, so that's going to be fun.
Have you ever heard of it?
Like vaguely, but I think I've seen the cover of it, and it reminded me of like Transylvania 65000.
Yep.
And
That's
so
what the cover looks like. Yep, you're right.
So
And the genre, I mean, it's horror, but on Letterbox it's fantasy, horror, and comedy.
yeah, it sounds like a Teen Wolf ripoff, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it does. So we'll have to see if this is more horror or more comedy, or probably fails at both.
Probably. Especially if it's not in the conversation anymore, like nowadays. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Like I said, I've never heard of this movie, but obviously, I've heard of Larry Cohen.
Yeah.
He directed, uh, what is it? It Lives, or
yeah,
It
the It
Lives.
Lives trilogy. Yeah.
And he did
Or
Q.
is it? Yeah. Oh, Q the Winged Serpent. Is it? It Lives or It's Alive? I think it's Alive, right?
It's Alive. Yep,
Yeah.
It's Alive. That's what
What
it's
a
called.
Larry Cohen's just like just a weird filmmaker. He passed away, I think, a couple years ago. But
Part two is It Lives Again. That's why I was thinking It Lives.
yeah, and the third one's like the island or something of like the living or something. Yeah, what
It's
a
Alive, Island of the Alive, which I've never seen that part three. I think it might be on. I think it might be on the list. 10 years from now when we get to
the 90s.
1984.
Oh yeah, I have the trilogy, and then there are two remakes of It's Alive. There's an American one and there's a Russian one. I've never seen either one of those. I'm very interested in the Russian one. But what a
Interesting.
fucking horrifying. And that's not even the movie we're watching. We're watching some other piece of shit he made, probably from watching Happy Days. So yeah, Full Moon High.
Just another fucking werewolf movie, Keith. Let's rock and roll.
You fucking dumb bitch. Look around you.
Because also in 1981, we got The Howling. We haven't even got there yet. It's
Oh,
another
I'm so
fucking werewolf.
excited. I love The Howling. Okay, good. At least there's some good stuff coming up. I also like, I don't know if your mom listens to this podcast or just the other one, but I like how we've just become angrier as movies go along.
This is the one she listens to because she can actually watch the movie and follow along what we're saying.
Oh, it's just
Because
no idea
otherwise
about the others.
she's like Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know what the heck that is.
That's funny. Well, Mom, I'm sorry if you're watching this bleeding or whatever the fuck that was. The Burning. Yeah. Oh. All right, so next time, Full Moon High, we'll watch some werewolves and some teenagers, directed by a man who's probably already in his 60s when he directed it. What?
That's a good point.
In the meantime, Chad, where can people find you?
Twitter, X, Instagram, NQC Podcast.
Awesome. And if you're looking for me, you can find me in the not quite darkness.
Peace.